welcome to the new year. Sales is always a great way to start. So just to give you a little bit of background of what I'm going to take you through today, and obviously what I do for people as well. So I talk to a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs on lots of different levels on how to implement sales. So a lot of people will come to me to put sales teams into place. Now, whether you're at the level of putting a sales teams into place or you're just a lead generator yourself, because if you're a business owner, you're a lead generator. So if that's all you're doing at the minute and you're not looking at a sales process, you still need a sales process. If you're not looking at a sales team, you still need a sales process. So this is going to be quite a high level overview of a system I wrote for a company that I went into that received Series A funding. So you're probably going to think this is a bit high level, Carla, because I'm not at that level, but that's fine. What I want you to take away from this is the importance of the consistency and the plans that you need to put into place really for your teams or for yourself, for your business to grow. That is the bottom line of what I really would like to try and get across, because I've sat in a couple of these meetings and, you know, and it's great because I've heard some great questions about cold emails and cold calling, do they work and things like that. And I have a telemarketing background. That's where I started. So I've not come into this and just gone, I know I've run a few teams. I started at grassroots of, I picked up that phone and I was a telemarketer, and then I moved up and up and up and up to the level that I'm at now. And I've done an array of sales. Admittedly, not retail, was not my bag. Okay, so I've lived this life, and so I understand this life. And this is why I feel that when I go into companies and you have never done this process or started at that kind of level before, it's very hard for you to understand it. And it's also very hard to put a team into place if you've never been part of a team before. Okay, so it's a case of having that understanding of what, as a company, you have to provide a team for, because a lot of this is it. Management level expectations that you need to provide. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start with, I went into a company, Series A, they asked me to put 5 BDRs in, or SDRs, whatever you want to call them, pure lead generation. Okay, and so prior to where we're going to jump in, I'd already been in the company for a period of time, and I looked at management, I looked at all their databases, I looked at their streamlining systems, I looked at the CRM systems. And then once I'd sorted all that out, I then placed into an activity level. So I'm going to jump straight in and just share with you. And we're going to go from the basis of, this team is now hired. I have now written the program, and I know it works because I've tried and tested it to make sure, because you don't want to bring a sales team in or start your lead generation with not having something in process and in place to get your results. So let me just share my screen here. Can everybody see that? Does it come up? Expectations of activity team. So one of the biggest things I find when I go into a company, when I say expectations, you know, what kind of lead generation you're wanting, what are you at the end of it? They go, well, we need about 20, you know, we need about 20 leads to come in a month, and we need to turn over this amount of money. We need to do anything else. But there's no activity. None of them have ever thought about activity. And this is where it comes down to where your lead generation will stand you in good stead from day one. Okay. So when I've put a team into place, we look at, obviously we're doing outbound, how many salespeople we've got here. And then we've also then got to start looking at list creations, because you can't just randomly go out there. So when I'm looking at a team, if I know I've got 3 BDRs and I've got a list creation, I've got to make sure they've got X amount of data to go at. Okay, it's not just a case of having nothing. I've got to make sure they've got enough data to go at. So I'll go in and audit their systems to make sure they've got thousands, and I mean thousands of data in there of prospects that they can go at. And then we've got to do our target campaigns. This is all prior to anybody picking up the telephone. So we've got to work out our target campaigns. So this particular company that I was working for was a SaaS company, and they had 3 different elements to their SaaS product. So we had to, so one part of the SaaS could not be sold in the same way as the other part of the SaaS. So we had to target those campaigns. So by doing your list creation, you are then going to move your lists into this particular campaign. And this is how we know that we're going to target the right person. So you are not wasting your time. All this is about not wasting your time and using every element you can. And part of this as well, we also did it regionally. Okay. So we also knew that it's a denser population in London. So we had to split that regionally to a particular salesperson and to a particular lead generator at the same time to make sure that we were targeting. And we always do this because it's a case of all this information will give you data at the end of the day, because if you're not getting anything back from this, that's huge information. It's not a case of this doesn't work. It's a case of this part doesn't work. Where are we missing? And then this is not so much, it's just this was segmented in because even though it was regional, there are other aspects to the SaaS program that we had to cover with the segment. So the outreach. So what I'm expecting a sales team to actually come in and do, just pure lead generation, not closing, just getting that call. And what I mean by just lead generation is getting a booked meeting into a diary for a closer for your sales team. Okay. And so one aspect of that will be calls. And I will be asking them to do 80 calls per day, minimum 80 calls per day. Now that sounds like an awful lot. It's doable. It really is doable, but I will not be expecting it to stay at 80. I'll bring them in and start them at 50. I'll push them up to 80 in the first month, because then that is them getting into the process of learning the system, putting things on CRM and just getting, the feel for how the process all works. I will push them up to the 80. Now, the reason I do that is because they're not bringing anything in and we're doing 80 calls a day. There's an issue. That tells me there's an issue. So if they're staying at 80, it's telling me there's either a training issue, there's a data issue, there's a problem with, there's loads of problems going on. Okay, so this is all information. It's not a case it doesn't work. It's information. It's not happening. And at 80 calls per day, I also have to make sure that that works out at around 1,600 calls per month, that person needs to have that data. So if you haven't got data enough to, when you set yourself targets of this is how many calls I'm going to make, I know I'm going to have to drop that to then put in a process for them to database build. So I would drop that down. But right now, I know that I've written this where they can do 80 calls a day because I know they've got enough data to do it. Okay, but that's just probably data. I'm not too sure how old this is, but then you still need to use that data that you've got. You've got to use something. I will be expecting that number to drop to about 1450 after about a month, because after about a month, I will be expecting the team to be having conversations. So I will not be expecting 80. I'll be expecting between 40 and 50 because they should be having conversations. And that's then where things start getting interesting and turning into conversations and more conversations, because you're not going to get somebody on the first call. Okay, you are going to get them on probably the fourth, fifth. They've had a couple of emails. This is, if you get it over, if you get on the first call, you swim the channel, pat yourselves on the, it's a great one and it's a really good feeling. But the whole point of being quite clear on this is don't be disheartened too much. Don't think I've done this amount and it's not coming in. It's all about consistency and it's all about keeping going. Okay, but what I will have here is so I will make sure that the team have got that 1,600 to go at. I don't expect them to hit it all, but I'll be expecting an awful lot of that to have been covered, and not at just one point. I will have been expecting at least 3 calls, maybe 4 calls. I'll be expecting a couple of emails. I'll expecting a reach out on LinkedIn. I'll be expecting a lot, okay, because you need different touch points, okay, to really try and narrow down who you're actually making sure that you're actually getting through to the right person. And even all behind that, trying to get something out of a call. I always say, if you're going to make a call, try and get as much information. Even if you're talking to the gatekeeper, just make sure you're finding out you're talking to the right person. It's all about not wasting your time. So whilst that's going on, we've also got the emails, and I'll be expecting about 1,000 a week to be going out. Now, don't forget, I've given them a system to make sure that they can do that. But the reason I need 1,000 a week, because if they're doing 1,600 here, in the first couple of weeks, I'll be expecting the final stage, the last 1,000, to be them emailing and prepping them, doing a cold email campaign out there. Because I know people say cold email campaigns don't work. They really do. They do, but they have to be high. I mean, from a perspective, this is only 1,000, warming them up. Okay, we'd have probably taken them a lot higher. Now, companies then do outsource to other companies where you're talking, they're sending out 20,000 and they have the systems to do that. Now, you can do that as individuals yourself. You can use Your own Google. What I would advise you though, because Google have made an announcement that if 0.3% of your emails that you send out are reported as spam, they will close down your domain. That is as of the 1st of February. So if you're looking to do, but the best thing about Google is Google will give you 30 free domains that you can add onto your main domain. Never use your main domain at all, because you don't want that to be closed down. Make sure you figure out, and you can find all this information out. You can YouTube this information. It's absolutely fine. And it will show you on your Google to add an extra 30. I'm sure it's 30. And it's really simple to put into place. But then also what you need to do is you need to warm up those domains as well, because if you just suddenly start throwing out those emails, it will close you down. So when I mean about a warm up, you probably want to be sending out maybe 50 a day. 50 a day. And at the end, don't worry, I'm going to show you some software that you guys can implement for free and test this yourselves. I'll give you that information at the end. But what I want you to understand is the consistency of so many different approaches that you have to take. This is not just about taking one on board and doing one, doing another and going, it doesn't work. It really has to be, but you have to plan your day. And that, fortunately, you know, I've done this a long time. I can train a team to do this. So they will be doing 80 calls a day. They will be doing 1,000 a week. And then they'll also do probably a reach out on LinkedIn to 100 people per week, but that's all you're allowed to do anyway. So if it was a lot more, I'd have them doing a lot more. But I would be expecting these to drop. I really would be expecting these all to drop, because there should be conversations happening by now. If no conversations are happening on this model that I've typed up here, then I know full well that it's wrong. There's something falling down. 9 times out of 10, when I've put things like this in before, what has fallen down is the data. It's the data that's falling down. And I don't mean the quality of the data. I mean, I have gone in and audited a BDR and gone, why are your numbers dropping? Why are you not consistently doing this? And what they've done is they're like rotating probably about 80. So they rotate about 80 and they're not pulling anything new in, because this should be pulling something new in, you know, this should be pulling something new in. So if they're just rotating the small part of data, you're going to get nothing. You're just going to go round and round and round. That's why your numbers have to be quite high. Okay. Any questions so far on that? No, all good?
Yeah, no, I've got one. Sorry,
Okay.
Carla. Just clarify for me what your 3-letter acronym SDR and BDR stand for.
SDR is Sales Development Representative, and a BDR would just be a Business Development Representative. The acronyms change as the wind goes because it tries to make it sound less salesy.
Okay.
So there'll be a new one.
So on your chart, what you're saying is you have however many salespeople or biz dev people.
Yep.
And you're expecting them all to do what, 100 calls a day and 1,000 emails a week, or assuming the 1,000 emails is automated.
Yes, it'll be automated through. Yes, because as a company, you can't just ask them to do this and not provide them the software and the equipment to do this. So you have to do it at your limits. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have not got access to any of this, which I know a lot probably don't, but there are some freebies out there that you can actually test this out on. Okay. So if the system, so as long as you make sure that system's in place, and that I will go in and test that. I will sit there for a couple of days and I'll test that, because I won't be asking somebody to do something I can't do myself.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Paul?
Hi, yeah, my question's around the data. So you've talked around arming people with the quality of data. Firstly, where have you got data from? And can you just touch on secondly, can you sort of touch on the quality of data that you need?
Okay, so I've bought data in from data companies, and do you know what? You can go to these companies quite a lot and you can say to them, thinking about buying some data, can you give me a test? And they'll send you about 50 out anyway. A good place to go would Fiverr. You can find a lot of people on Fiverr that you can buy probably 1,500 from for about £40. I think I found there and there, but make sure you're buying, you know, the quality. But I guarantee you, they will be pulling their data from LinkedIn. Most people will pull their data from LinkedIn. And I'm going to show you at the end of this how you can do that anyway. and a software program that will show you how to do that. That is free. That'll give you 250 a day. And I'll show you how to do that at the end. Is that okay? Matt?
Yeah, sorry if I missed this when you started, but these numbers 80, 1,000 and 100 in pursuit of what target?
This target, so that would have been for 20 leads per month.
20 leads per month. Okay, thank you.
I would say 20, that was set by the company, not necessarily by me. I wouldn't have said 20 leads per month, but they went straight in. But if you're putting a new team into place, I did advise them and say, standard average is probably going to be about 8 to 10 a month based on this on a new team. Now, once your team has been with you or you've been doing this for a period of time, you're going to move that up. But to hit them with the biggest target going is not a great idea because it's demoralizing. And you don't need a demoralized team. You're better off giving a team a target and go and letting them hit that target and then moving it up, because everybody knows the target goes up once you hit it. But if you start moving targets up, you know, prior to a target being hit, how are they going to do that? You've got to think about your team that way. It's a case of start them off small, build them up, build them up. But that is your job as a leadership and management. That is your job to train them to get them up there. Or your sales manager, whoever you put in place has to train them. So whatever you set them, they come in at a certain level, because obviously people will pay the cheapest person they can get on initially and then expect them to sell like a person that's been selling for years. And it just doesn't happen. You're better off getting a really good manager or someone that can teach you how to nurture a team. And you know what? They will fly a lot quicker if you spend some time on that.
So just to confirm my understanding, so this is a team of how many people?
So I put a team of,
is this per person
per
to
person.
generate the 8 to 10 leads? Was that per month? Did you say? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's that's per person.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just ask for a clarification on what you mean by a lead, Carla?
Harry? Yes, it's a booked appointment. So a lead generator will then make sure that they have got a secure meeting with somebody to then pass over to a sales closer. And I'll take you through that on the next stage.
Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions? I don't know if I've got you all up there. Nope. Okay, I'm going to move you into the actual process then. Let me just move this across. I couldn't put this on a power slide because you would never see it. So I hope you can all see this. Can everybody see that? Cool. Ooh, maybe not now. Right. So outbound lead. So this is the process I've just then given to you on what I've set for them to go. This will then be the sales team here starting the sales team outbound process. But we also, I don't know if you can quite see the main. Okay. So whether it's inbound or whether it's outbound, they still have to follow this process before we then will put them through to a sales closer. So I will ask the BDR or the SDR to, so if an inbound comes in, I will say, I want that inbound picked up within half an hour. That's the set rule. Half an hour that's picked up. If somebody's filling in on your website to actually have a conversation with you or want some information with you, I want that picked up within half an hour because they're on another website already looking for the same. Okay, so you need to be in there first. So that was my rule. I tried 15 minutes, but the team weren't having it. I said I compromised at 30. Then what I want them to do is a qualification.
Carla, you're breaking up a little bit.
Criteria, because there's no point wasting your sales team. You know, from here, I asked them to do this now. Am I all right?
Okay, now, yeah. Okay.
So I will ask the team to do a qualification criteria. And the qualification criteria will be, this is a basic one. You set your own criteria. This is a BANT. So BANT criteria will be budget, authority, need, and time frame. So when they're talking to somebody, they will be making sure they've got a budget that they can afford the product we're selling. They have the authority to go forwards with this. They are a decision maker, so we're not wasting time. They have a need for this product. They're not just out there having a general look. They actually have a need for this product. And what is the time frame? Because if they're tied into other contracts, there might be a point where there's no point speaking to them now, but speaking to them in 3 months' time might be a better issue. Okay, rather than wasting a salesperson's time. So we will get them to do a bank qualification. Now, part of this process, I was always asked to train this team to turn them into sales teams, to move them up from BDR to sales teams. So I put in here a basic PSW, and that stands for a problem. Oh, it should be PWS. I got that wrong. It stands for problems we solve. Okay, so then we would then train the team after about a year of being a BDR to then start learning more about the product. And then we would teach them to progress them up to the next level on how to start asking better questions. So the problems we solve, and that's ultimately what you're doing when you're selling your product. You're solving problems, and that's how we needed to really get the team to work and having conversations. So if we have then qualified this BANT, qualified that they've got a need and everything, it's a good process to put in. So outside of this, we had in this process an enterprise professional and an essentials element to the software. So we then just had to work out which sales rep this was going to, the enterprise team, the professional team, or the essentials team. So the essentials was the box off the shelf product. Professional was your SMEs, your enterprise, or your tier one. So that's how we then just differentiated that. Then what we do is, so basically we do this and we secure, the BDR or the SDR secures this. But before it goes anywhere, I would want the system completely filled in. So there'll be playbooks, there'll be everything. Because what I usually find is that if you don't fill in your CRM systems, if you don't fill in this information, it really does fall down at some point. And with it being a new team, I would then have a playbook, CRM, and then I would make sure that they had a meeting, an absolute definite meeting in place. And so once they come to me and say, Carla, I have all this in place, they bring it to me and I'll check it. After about 6 months, I do not want to be checking these. I will want them to know that they are perfectly fine to be going through, but on this stage, I'll be checking it. And this will go through to the salesperson. So the salesperson that they have decided it goes through to will then have a look at this. And they will say, are you prepared to accept this or decline it? Because they may have an issue. They may have spoken to this person before. You never know what goes on, but they had to. Also, from a training perspective, it was a case of we needed to know that the salesperson could actually deal with this, because we'd want to know. So if they said, no, I'm not prepared to accept this, I'd want to know why. There'll be a decline and I want to know why. For this purpose, they've accepted it. So they've looked through the playbook. We've qualified this down to a T, so they accept it. So the the BDR, will then send out an introductory email introducing the salesperson that they're handing this over to, and they'll set the meeting. And in that meeting, it will be a case of the BDR will turn up if that's how you want to set it. We didn't at the beginning, we moved on to that as they progressed up. We did it part of a training program, and then the email would go out and the meeting would be set. Now, if some people would turn up to these meetings, some people, we've all had no-shows, they're a pain, but I would say if there's no shows, I want at least 2 attempts of them trying to set. I would expect the salesperson to have 2 attempts of trying to get this back in. If they didn't get it back in, it will come back into the pot, into the person that sent it over to them to redo this all again for them. Now, let's say the meeting was attended. So if the meeting is attended, great, and the salesperson says, I can take this forward, I know I'm going to sell this, it is then the end of the process for the lead generator. And the reason we do an end of process as well is because once that has been accepted from the meeting being sat and moves into the sales team, that then does not come back to us, because you'll get a salesperson, then I'll go, well, I didn't quite close it, I didn't do anything else. And the reason we then set it that way is because if they don't close it at that end, that could be many issues there. Is it a training issue? Is it actually the software wasn't equipped at the bottom line is it a technical issue? We need to get tech sales onto that. Maybe we need to design that. All of this is put into place to see at training levels, whether it is tech, what is the issue, okay? And that's why most processes are outlined like this, purely on a basis to give you information. Now, this was the final version that we put into place. There was another couple of versions we had before this, didn't work, but we managed to find out where the bottleneck was before this is put into place. So I know this is a lot to take on board, but what I would say to you is you're never going to get this right first time, okay? So just understand you're not going to get this right first time. Nobody gets it right first time. But whatever you do, map it out. My biggest advice would be to map it out, because if you can see and pinpoint where it's gone down, you may only have to change one process rather than the whole lot and say that this does not work, because 9 times out of 10, it usually is one element of that. Are there any questions there? No? All understand? Yeah? I've got one in the chat. Bear with me. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is literally a process for you. It's a lot to take on. And I think if you've never done this before, it's probably quite big. It's probably quite scary. But what I would say is just please understand the consistency of it if you want to progress your business a lot further than it is. The other stage I'll just take you through is this that we use, gapology. Has anybody heard of gapology before? No. So gapology is a system that we put into place. It's a method that we put into place. So if you are looking to put in a sales team, or you already have a sales team, this is purely down to management and now employees. And I will be honest with you, 9 times out of 10 when I go into companies, it is a leadership issue, okay? Because it's not, they haven't fundamentally grasped of what their sales team need. So we use this method, or I put this method into place. And what we look at here is, if somebody comes to them and says, we've got an issue with an employee, okay? And I would say to them, right, have you hired the right talent? Because it's questionable. I've seen some hires and not understood why. Okay, have you taught them properly? Have you given them enough training? How much training have you given them? And I'd be expecting all this to be documented, because I make sure it's documented when I go in and do this, because this then is a complete knowledge gap. So if all these are no, you know you're on a good start to this being a leadership issue, okay? Expectations, okay? Expectations, communication, prioritization. Have you taught your team how to do this? Don't ever expect a team to come into place and know. You have to set the standards yourself. You have to set the whole table out for your team to understand what is expected of them. So like the activity, I expect that activity to be at 80. If you're not bringing anything in, I want a high activity, because that gives me information. Okay, they will know that, and they'll know that I'll be talking to them about it, why this is an issue. Communication, have you communicated that well enough? Because we've all worked in the companies, whether we work for ourselves or not. We all know communication is the worst and it never flows through. Have you communicated what you are expecting from your team? Okay. If there's a prioritization, if something new is coming into the company, if something is changing that you need prioritizing, have you told them this? You know, a lot of this falls down because nobody communicates. Okay. Again, it's a leadership issue, not an employee issue. And then the importance gap. So again, accountability, commitment, and culture. Have you put a culture in? Are your teams all talking to themselves? Do they acknowledge what everybody else is doing in the company? Commitment, seeing what everybody else is committed to, because you get some salespeople that are absolutely committed, blowing it out of the water, and then you get some that are like just cruising along, and it's like you want the commitment all along, because it doesn't bode well. I've seen many teams fall down because you've got high flying salespeople right there doing very well and getting the same praise as the people that are not. And whilst you need to boost and train and nurture upwards, it's also a case of you still need to keep your high flyers, you know, well nurtured at the same time. Don't forget them, because they will leave. And I've seen it happen many, many times, and they wonder why they go, oh, we pay you well, your bonuses are well and everything. But actually, yeah, but the team that are not doing so well are roughly on the same, and still they get more attention, more praise. Never let that drop, because that's your culture, you know, and the accountability. You have to hold accountability. So if all these are a no from a leadership team, I haven't conveyed that to a sales team. It's a leadership team issue. If all these are a yes and all ticked off, it's an employee issue. Okay, because then you know this person is not for the right job. Because many times I will go into companies and they'll say, well, I keep asking them to hit target, I keep getting them to do this, and they sit there and the sales team go, yeah, I'll try again next time. And it's like, how can we get them to that next level? Well, it's a case of, if you've put in process something very similar that I've just shown you, and you know you've trained them and you've got the right talent and you conveyed all this, and they are not hitting the targets and they're not hitting the mark, it really is that they're not the right person for the role. And 9 times out of 10, if you put something like this into place, it is a case of you're going to get your team to either step up or step off. Most sales teams will then leave. You won't end up with those people on your team going, I'm just cruising along and get away with this. No, because you're asking them to step up. As a management, you're asking them to step up. If they don't step up, they realize that and they leave. And it's usually an issue that you don't have to deal with. They'll just see to it themselves. Does that make sense? Okay. So on to the final bit, because I think there's probably enough there that you can take on board, because there's so much more to this. What I'm going to do now is just give you an element of all the things that I've been talking about, some processes, maybe some reading material that you can go away with, where you can take on board, because I appreciate that if you've not done this before, this is quite high level, you know, to really get your teeth into. So what I want you to do is be able to just give you a little something that you can go away with and have a look at these systems and look at how you can maybe sort out your data a bit better, you know, do your emailing campaigns. So let me take you down here to the recommendations. So first of all, and I've tried and tested these, okay? So Apollo.io. I am not an affiliate with any of these. This is just things that I know that from when I started my business. I knew I then did not have the Series A funding to go in and put great systems into place. I went and then researched my own because I knew what I needed. Now I found Apollo.io is a CRM system. I don't use it as a CRM system. I use it for just pure lead generation. Now you can download this for free and you can have the free version. And what you can do, it allows you to send out 250 emails a day, and it pulls all the information off LinkedIn. And if you know how to do a LinkedIn search, you'll certainly know how to do Apollo.io, because the filter systems on this software are really good, really, really good. You can narrow your ICP down pretty well. And for those of ICP, ideal customer profile, your target audience, you'll be able to narrow this down pretty well, because the last thing you want to do is waste your time. It'll ask you to connect your emails on there, so you can connect all your extra domains that you've put into place, and it will then help you even write the emails. Now you can go on to YouTube and put in Apollo.io tutorial, and it'll show you how to put this into place. And you can connect it to, you can connect it if you've got HubSpot, I think Salesforce, it connects to most. So you can actually have all the emails that you sent out and the information going into your CRM system as well. But it's a good way just to practice and just start seeing how you can send things out. And it's also got an AI attachment to it, so it'll help you write your emails as well. But you can certainly get a lot further just by trying. Dripify is purely just a reach out to LinkedIn. So if you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn reaching out and doing requests and then sending messages and things like that, Dripify will do it all for you. This one is paid for. You, I think you get about a month free trial, so you can try it. I think this is about £80 a month. But again, all you need to do is go in, do a search on LinkedIn, and then put it into Dripify, and it will send out your campaigns for you purely through LinkedIn if that's how you use it as well. But what you do need for Dripify and LinkedIn is you do need to learn how to do a Boolean search. And a Boolean search is the best way to filter out anything on LinkedIn. And I would really advise anybody that if you don't know how to do a Boolean search, certainly YouTube this and Google this and learn how to do this, because this will narrow down. This will give you a list really quite easily, and it will remove anybody that you don't really need at all. It will narrow your search down so well. And there's tutorials on YouTube for that as well. So if you learn how to do a Boolean search, you'll be fine. And then the final one I would advise to read will be this, Problem Prospecting. It's a very good book. It covers Boolean searches. It covers email campaigns. It covers a lot of what I've spoken about today and probably more. And if it's something that you really just need that extra boost, confidence, whatever it is you need to take forwards, that is a really good book as a good starting point to really read and have a look at. Any questions with those? Anybody tried those before?
There's a question from Philippa in the chat, Carla. Is there a risk of LinkedIn jail using Dripify? I've heard they are clamping down on AI on their platform.
They are clamping down, but Dripify, whatever you use, there's a risk, okay? But the thing with Dripify is it drips it in. So the algorithms, I believe, on LinkedIn are very much, if it's too excessive, if you continue to just send requests, and they're not getting picked up, it also deletes the request at the other end. So if the request is not accepted by that person, it will also delete it, because I think the problem with people on LinkedIn is if you do your 100 requests a week and then you've got something like 700 requests sat there that nobody is saying yes to, that looks like then it's a company like this. However, what this Dripify does, it then removes the request. So you can set that campaign up yourself where you go, if my request is not accepted after a certain amount of time, it then will remove it. But you're going to have an issue with whatever you use. But Dripify is the latest one to be able to get around this. And it drips it in purely on the basis that it doesn't look like, because what it does is it'll send out a request. It will like a post. It will send a message. It will then comment on something else. So it does a lot more than just a request. Does that make sense? Neil.
Hi, Carla. Thanks. Very interesting talk. My question is around, I guess, the brief for sales team and their relationships with other departments in an organization, because quite often those can be siloed and sales guys are the heroes, marketers, product designers, business, all etc. And there's been a changing landscape in the importance of retention, culture, experience, customer relationship. How are you finding, I guess, the success criteria briefs changing to salespeople, rather than just getting people over the line in acquisition, but actually understanding the purpose and culture and feeding back into the product and service design? Because I feel that there's a different role for service, or there are different relationships for salespeople that are beginning to appear. Sorry, long-winded question, but that's the idea.
Right. So what I'm taking from that is obviously there's loads of grey areas of where people sit and what they should be doing and things like that. That's why when I was showing you that process, when I was saying to you that the lead generation process stops there and it then falls into the different department, I would be very stringent on that. Because you'd have marketing, you'd have a lead generation, then you'd then have a sales team, and then you'd have tech sales, and all this that flows needs to flow, but you need your cutoff points. The job role has to land with someone, and we have to know where it lands. Okay, so because once we know where that job lands, that responsibility lies to you. You can't blame another department. We've ticked off absolutely everything you've asked us to do. It now sits with you. That's where we know where there is a training issue, whether it's an employee issue, whatever that issue is, we can do that. But I would also on the back of this, because this process I put into place here, it was fully remote. This company didn't have an office, so what I did is I created an online office environment, which is pretty much like this networking environment. And we used to have a Slack setup, and we'd be talking away on Slack, and I would randomly, as a manager, throw in there some random fact, nothing to do with work. I know this is like going off post, but it was so these employees could get to know me better, you know. So I would say 2 truths and a lie. Which one is it? What an answer by lunchtime, you know. And it'll just be a case of there'll be a bit of a giggle. And this, if you think about it, most people like walk into an office and they have a bit of a chat in the morning, a bit of a coffee before they go and do everything. When you're remote like this, you still have to have that environment, and that's setting the culture of we still say good morning to everybody, you know, we say goodbye to everybody, ask somebody how the day is. But also on that chat we had, oh, I've gotten a lead today, and we were like, right, somebody set the standard here, who's next? And then you'd build up that competition, and that's what you need. I don't know if that's fully answered your question, because it is a case of build your team, build your quality, but bring them really closer. But then they still need to work with other departments.
I guess yes. I think if there's still my question, it's kind of the connection between, I guess, the purpose, value, and ongoing value to the customer, that relationship with the salespeople, because I've worked in large corporations, banks, where they sell it and they don't give a monkeys, because their bonus is about acquisition, and they really don't care if it's of any use to the person once they've sold it or not.
Yeah.
You know.
I hear you. I hear you. There is that fine cut-off point, and as a lead and as a management team, it's a case of, well, do you want your team selling and bringing your revenue in? So the next department that really takes that on needs to be as good, really does need to be as good, because if they're not, then it really should sit probably with that salesperson for a certain amount of time, or there is a handover process. Perhaps, you know, there is a handover process, or you put in a customer relations person that can do that process and hand over and go, this is the next stage, you know, and still have that fluid conversation, because that's where it falls down. The money's in the bank, boom, you're done, and then you're in a customer service process where you just get automated emails, put in a queue, and we'll see to your problem very soon. And that then just takes away from everything that salesperson has done. I totally understand where you're coming from. It's a case of, I would probably say, handover process, but you've got to make sure that other team is just as good as your sales team. Everybody, it's accountability for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Henry.
Carla, hi, can you hear me?
I can.
I've realised I'm going to ask an impossible question, or a question with a difficult answer. But what kind of, given that we're talking about some kind of fictitious product here or fictitious service, what kind of response rate from the LinkedIn outreach would you expect? What kind of conversion rate? Sorry, what kind of conversion rate would you expect?
Okay. Well, to let you know, this is not fictitious.
Well, okay, but you know, it's nameless, you know, so yeah,
it is,
yeah.
Yes. From this, I would say not so much from this. It would be in the least of the three. So from the call and the email and the LinkedIn would have been the least on this one. Now, if I take you to a process I'm just doing at the moment, I'm working alongside a company that has asked me to help them raise funds for a product. Now, this is something I've not done before. So I've gone back to my grassroots of, right, I need to now design myself this sales process on how I'm going to do it. LinkedIn was a big thing for me, because you don't just pick up the phone and randomly call someone that's, you know, an investment banker or who, you know, a VC. And I've used LinkedIn myself, and I would say my response rate is, well, let's say I've been doing it for 2 months and I know I've got 4 meetings already booked in, and I've got a couple of conversations going as well.
From how many outreaches? From how many people?
So I would probably say, because I've had the Christmas as well, so I've probably done about 500, possibly something like that. But bearing in mind, I've only just started. This is not a process I've done before, and this is not something I've actively done before. So this is a new area for me. So I've based mine on that, and then now I know that if say like I've got 500 and I've got 4 meetings and I've got a couple of conversations going just from that, I know now I need to sort out my messages a lot better, probably try the email as well. But I would say I did not just use LinkedIn. So more of the conversations I'm finding now, I've got through networking events.
Okay, so you're looking at about 1%, 0.5%, something along those lines.
On something I've not used before, yeah. On some, yeah. But you've got to start somewhere, and that's my baseline now.
No, sure. I was just interested. Yeah. Okay. No,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you, Carla.
But
I
on the
don't think
back
you're
of
hitting 80 there a day, Carla. I think you need to step it up a bit.
well, you're limited.
But-
You are limited. You're only limited to 100 a week in my defense. You know, I'm
Okay, fair
limited.
enough.
You know, if they were going to let me do 80 a day, trust me, I would.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just have a look at the chat. Bear with me. Got any more questions? No. Any more questions at all?
There's a question there from
Yeah,
Matt.
from Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Carla. Again, sorry, I wasn't paying attention at the beginning. If the sales process that you put in place that you showed us, what kind of product was that for? Was that for new category type of product? Was that for entering a market with many competitors? What
It was
easy sale, difficult sale?
difficult, very difficult, because they'd not been around very long, so they didn't really have a name behind them. So it was a SaaS product. It was construction software. So we know that's fairly there's a lot of construction software out there at the moment, but this was particularly different because a lot of construction software, it's either predominantly maintenance based or accounts based or subcontractor based, you know, and there's so much to the construction industry that there's an array of them out there. So it did kind of stand out, this product, because I'd worked in construction software before anyway, from the account side, and this was trying to go down the maintenance, and that's why then when I first joined it, they only had the professional. They then introduced the enterprise, and then they introduced the essentials, which was off the shelf box. So this team had to move pretty quickly in a very short space of time to actually get the heads around what they were trying to sell.
Was it a complex sale? Is this a case of you're selling to people who already know they need what you do, or was this we have to educate the market as well?
I would say more we'd have to educate the market. If you have ever worked in the construction industry, it's the most antiquated industry I think I've ever had to try and sell to. They're still doing spreadsheets, and the owner's like, well, it's been working since day one. We don't need anything now. And it's like the worst nightmare. But it's a case of trying to educate them to say, but at some point you are going to have to move into this kind of era, because anybody that you are going to hire going forwards are going to be used to software. They're not going to go back to pen and paper and spreadsheets or anything like this, you know. So it is a case of trying to really educate. That's where we had to get into, you know, because they'd have a poor saleswoman that was completely stressed out of her mind doing the accounts, still on 4 separate spreadsheets, but it doesn't matter, she knows what she's doing. That's a hard sell to get through, but you find ways of doing it.
And if I could just ask one supplemental question, just to get a sense of the scale of this, from 1 being, I can't think anybody would need this ever, to 10 being, why would you even question it? How strong was their proposition?
I would say about a 7.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Henry? Oh, sorry. Is it? Yeah. No, Harry. Sorry.
Henry.
Oh, no, it's Henry. Sorry. I do need to probably should put this on now. I'm back on this screen.
Don't worry, Harry, either way, it's fine. What was the cost per sale?
Oh.
Because I'm just thinking, you know, I mean, it sounds fantastic, you know, and I agree, you know, I mean, the process and everything you've outlined there, just you know, the way you've simplified and broken it down, I think is great. But I'm just interested, you know, I mean, we sell, you know, effectively B2B services. You know, we're not selling software; we're selling a service. And I just wondered, you know, I mean, I have in my mind a cost per sale, and to be honest with you, I've never really gone back and worked out whether it's feasible or not, and I will do after this. But I just wondered, you know, what was your anticipated cost per sale? You've got to employ those salespeople, you've got to give them commission, etc., etc., etc. You've got to provide software, all the rest of it, not including the marketing. Do you know what the cost per sale was?
I can't quite remember for this particular one, I'll be honest. It was obviously high because they'd implemented a team. you know, and they were selling prior to this. The owners were selling everybody that they could get their hands on, were trying to sell this, and they had some very good tech sales in there as well. I can't remember the cost of this, but you do need to work out your cost per acquisition. You really do, of whether this is the sort of level that you want to go through to. But you can do a lot of this cheaply. You really can. It's more about trying to say, because
Well,
even
you've got to employ the people, haven't you? You know,
you do have to employ the people, but even at the level, if you don't want to employ the people and you're doing this yourselves, it depends on how you want to look at this. It is still a case of take from this the consistency of what you do, because many people that I speak to, it's about the consistency. They don't understand how much effort you really need to put into this. Now, if you do something very simple and put the effort in yourself, and just to see if this kind of process works, you are probably going to get a better look at how your business is going to look at whether it is going to be viable to then bring on somebody. But until you've probably done this yourselves, which I know is a lot to take on, or tried it, you're not going to know.
Yeah.
That would be my advice, because before I do anything, I will then go in and test it myself before, to see if it can be done, before I even think about employing anybody. And this is the point I kind of want to get across, of how important this is on a direction of where you're going to go. Set your plan out, because if this blueprint in front of you does not work, that's still a hell of a lot of information that you've got there pretty cheaply from your own time. Yeah.
yeah.
Does that help?
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fab.
Any additional questions for Carla this morning?
Was that helpful? That'd be good to know.
I think that's been really, really good. Good way to start the year. And I'm going to invite you to come back and do some more of this, Carla. I think it's very, very important. But we can talk about that later this month. Because there's other stages to this.
Oh yeah, this is just tiny. It's a tiny part of what I do, because before you can even put this into place, you have to make sure that the company can provide the team to do this. That's then before training the team to do this.
Exactly. So excellent. You're going to get a lot of love and big ups on LinkedIn today from us and the community. Really good. We'll get the video out to you as well. Got any last questions for Carla while she's with us this morning? And I think we've exhausted the questions, but yeah, really appreciate that this morning, and
no problem.
You're welcome back anytime.
Okay, thank you. Well, good luck, and I know it's a lot to take on board, but I think the final thing I'd leave you on with this: if you do embark on anything like this, just be kind to yourselves, because I'll tell you something now, this is not easy. You know, if you are good, but pat yourselves on the back if you decide to take one step into processes and putting stuff like this into place and putting yourself through this, because it's a hard way. Okay, at least give yourself a pat on the back, because I know many that don't.
Carla, sorry, can I just ask one more question, if that's okay?
Yeah.
When you did this for this company that you're describing, was the sales outreach backed up by a marketing campaign, or was the sales outreach considered marketing in itself?
No, the sales are it was backed up by marketing. So this is where we got the inbound. So they would have gone out to market on LinkedIn. For some reason, they never did email campaigns, but they did a lot of marketing. But we also did a lot of shows as well. So the marketing kind of did that as well. And so we backed up the follow-ups on those. So yes, while this process was going on, once they'd done a show, we would then back that up and follow that up to the nth degree. And if you really do need marketing and sales to work together, and I know a lot of companies will put the marketing in charge of what they send out, but my advice would be you let sales decide what goes out, because they need to, because what happens is you've got a sales team going out and going, oh, we're selling this side of it, and you've got marketing sending out something completely different. No, let's actually get what we're trying to sell at that same time, get that information out there, and get the sales team to then go, follow that up.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, just one final thing, Carla, from me. Is the idea of product and service design actually coming into that equation? Because to me, there's a healthy tension between marketing, sales, which is an old battle, which comes first, who is responsible. But product and service design is part of that as well, because, you know, well, what on earth is it that we're selling, and how do we change that, and how do we evolve that, rather than how do we broadcast and how do we bring people in? So is that beginning to come part of your conversation or part of something you're experiencing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when I do talk to companies and I do say, well, where have you been? Where are you at now? And where are you going to? Because it will fall into a conversation that we'd need to have. We need that information as a sales team. Because if somebody says, oh, yeah, but you don't do this, and you know it's going to come in 6 months' time, just say, well, actually, it is coming in 6 months' time. So, yes, you do have to have that as part of what's going forward. So, again, communication is key between all departments. So because there's no point tech sales going to write something else and then the sales team suddenly turn up and go, well, we've had so many conversations and everybody's asking for this, but tech has then built that. Well, actually, we need this, you know, so it's a case of we need to have those conversations. Totally.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Great way to kick off 24, and we're going to do some more of this in 24 as well. I think big area, really important. Thanks, Carla.
No problem. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day, everybody.